In Devs, Nick Offerman plays a Silicon Valley CEO at a tech company that has figured out how to see backwards and forwards in time. I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Goldderby, and Nick, I found Devs to be a profoundly moving and thought-provoking experience about grief, motivation, and fate. When all is said and done, what did you take away from your experience on this show?
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, first and foremost, I went into it as a participant, as a collaborator, not as an audience member. I was a huge fan of Alex Garland's work beforehand, so I honestly, when I got the call that he wanted to meet with me, I started crying because he's on the list of people that would make me feel that way. And so getting to collaborate with Alex, and then the caliber of artists that he attracts to him, the cast, Sonoya Mizuno, Allison Pill, and the rest, the artistic the department, Keys, and Rob Hardy, the incredible DP, the guys doing the music and the sound design, just across the board, getting to be a member of this team was one of the most exquisite pleasures of my life. And I don't know, as an actor, it's incredibly lucky. It feels like I've won a lottery when you get to work on material that you then would actually seek out and watch regardless as a fan. So, I mean, from start to finish, we worked on it for 6 months in the US and in England. And I mean, I remember the last few days of filming were the last few days of, it was the last few minutes, the last couple scenes of the series. And so it was mainly me and Sonoya and Allison and Stephen McKinley Henderson. And we all come from the theater by and large. And we just kept saying, 6 months in, we still were saying, how did he do this? How did he weave all of this together so that we're here on the last day of filming? And it's all, it's all coming home to roost. It just was really beautiful.
Yeah, and Forrest is a really complicated guy. We learn midway through the series that he is driven by this suffocating grief and guilt over the tragic death of his wife and child. What did you need to do as an actor to prepare for that kind of extreme emotion?
Well, I try to choose my projects based on the quality of the writing. That's first and foremost. As the old saying goes, if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. And so I feel so lucky that I get to look at different projects. And when Alex handed me these 8 scripts, these 8 one-hour scripts, it was the great thing about good writing is, for an actor, he kind of does a lot of the work for you. So, I had to sort of, do the nuts and bolts crap, the drama school stuff of like playing out the backstory and like mapping out the journey and, sort of marking out the dynamic of each scene. Where am I at is, this one I'm at a rage of 7. This one I'm at a enigmatic of 3 or whatever. But by and large, Alex answers any questions I would have. So the main thing I would do preparing for each day's work is just to inhabit the scene. We spend time learning the scenes. We had the luxury of rehearsing with Alex, with the other actors. So you've already packed it in, and it's just a matter of understanding what bit of the story he wants you to give the audience in that particular moment. It's like a huge prefix meal, and you're like, okay, I'm just in charge of these stuffed mushrooms. Let me just try and make the most delicious. Here's your stuffed mushroom, and then tomorrow is a ribeye.
Oh yeah. Gee, now I'm getting hungry. The look and sound of the show is unlike anything that I've ever seen. Maybe apart from Alex Garland's other work. What is your take on his unique vision that he conjures up for his projects? Because it's so singular and original, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, first and foremost, one of the things I love about Alex, and there are many things, is that he found success as a novelist, I think when he was like 25 or 26 with his first book, The Beach. And that quick success allowed him to then always exist outside of the business, whether it's the business of books or filmmaking. He never had to like chase the gold ring or he never had to chase the carrot that we all do in these businesses. And so I feel like from his point of view, he then is able to be just completely creative. I don't think it ever occurs to him like, what do people want to see, or what are people buying these days, or what's in fashion. Instead, he's just a pure artist who says, okay, I have this vision. He fleshes it all out. Just the fact that he writes the whole thing months before we ever start shooting is incredibly anomalous, because the metabolism of show business is usually much faster than that. And so that, combined with this incredible army of collaborators that he's assembled over the years, particularly the two people in charge of the art direction, Ex Machina, Annihilation, and now Devs, have been with him. So they're very incredible at taking his architecture and fleshing it into real life, manifesting it. For example, that Devs building is real. They built it in a soundstage in Manchester. And this is the example I always give: those scalloped gold walls with the light undulating across them that make them look like they're kind of breathing. Those were real. They built them. They cast these scalloped panels and then covered them in gold leaf. And those are the entire inside of the cube. And so then they trained the lights to undulate in a certain way that it really felt like you're in a living organism made of gold. And so that, that's the thing, is Alex has such a unique and beautiful vision, but then he attracts people, and he's such a good collaborator that he gets the best people. The computer in the center of Devs, I mean, that was just this incredible sculpture it's right now I think it's in storage, but it's bound to like stand alone in an art museum. I mean, and apparently that's very similar to what an actual real life quantum computer looks like.
Wow. Not only did the shows look and feel blow me away, but I thought the casting was really smart. Like, for example, for you, Forrest is supposed to be mysterious and maybe you think quite nefarious, but you brought something else to him. There's another nuance to him. He's empathetic and warm behind his unflinching single-mindedness. Do you agree that that's how we kind of understand this guy?
Well, yeah. I mean, the attractive thing about the role, and this happens with a few of the parts, there were like 6 or 8 of us who would argue about who had the best part in the show, and I think all of us were right because he's such a good writer. But I mean, I was so thrilled with that notion that this enigmatic character who does some, terrible things kind of right off the bat, and then baldly lies about them to the victims, where he's like, if somebody's done this, that's terrible. Somebody did that to your boyfriend. Listen, we're going to take care of you. And you're like, oh my God, this guy is what a villain. But then pretty quickly into episode 2, he has a scene with Sonoya's character, Lily, where he begins to intimate the grief that he's lived with and what he's gone through in losing his daughter. And you begin to say, oh, there's more to this. There's there is a humanity behind these acts that while perhaps not justifying them, at least makes them understandable. So that made it so fun to play, because I could freely, play these sincere scenes where the audience thinks, oh my God, how can he stand there and watch, this thing happen to this guy on a forest floor? But then you come to learn that if his plan works, then he's not culpable, because determinism would deem that it was all going to happen anyway. So no need to feel bad about it.
Yeah, and that's what fascinated. Like, the show deals with very weighty things, but the whole idea of determinism being a trial, if it works, then it precludes free will and you're absolved. If it doesn't work, you're guilty and you're damned. Well, what did you think personally about those concepts? Had you given them much thought before you signed on for this project?
Not much. I mean, I had read, I had consumed like descriptions in fiction mainly of the many worlds idea, and the whole I forget the actual title, but Spider-Man in the Spideyverse, really sort of addresses that very nimbly. But I hadn't really thought about applying it to real life, and I think it's because I'm a very simple animal. I like things simple. I don't even like using my phone or my laptop, even though I'm required to for my business. I would much rather use a hammer and a shovel and a bicycle. But sort of wrapping my head around the applications of it on the show, it's interesting. I feel like I could wrap my head around it, and it all made sense, like what Forrest thought and how he could justify his actions to himself. But I have to believe that deep down, maybe because I'm old-fashioned or somehow curmudgeonly, that deep down there's some vestige of humanity shaking its head, saying, "Come on, buddy, this is not right." And he's a genius. He is. He's so good at denial that he manages to achieve what he does in the narrative of the show. But I think if I were to do that, I'm very good at lying to myself. We all are. But somewhere, if you really sit and think about it, be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done some of those things.
Yeah. I was really entranced by the idea of seeing back in time. Episode 3 starts with a very grainy image of Christ on the cross. I was just completely gobsmacked by the whole concept. I didn't see it coming. But then it made me think, obviously, I think the obvious question is, if you could have the access to that technology, what would you want to see? And have you ever thought about that and what you would like to go back and see with your own eyes?
Yeah, I mean, sort of based on what I was just saying, I've been asked that a couple times, and I usually have said, I don't want to. I'm like a donkey. I want to walk to the end of the field, and then I'll walk back, and then I want you to give me an apple. But I mean, but generously, giving a more generous answer, and taking advantage of the gift that's being proffered. I mean, I would love to. I would love to go back and hang out in the cabinet of Abraham Lincoln and listen to that guy steer legislation. I would love to see, not the first production of Hamlet, but maybe the 18th performance once they work some bugs out.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really cool. I wouldn't mind doing that myself. And one other question about Des before we move on to a couple more things before we wrap up. I ultimately thought that with Forrest and the show, it demonstrated the complete power and overwhelming power that grief has on people and on how they get on with their lives. Did you find that his grief was a particular way in for you to understand him?
Well, yes, yes and no. The no of it is just that I have not had. I'm lucky. I'll be 50 soon, and I have not yet experienced the loss of somebody dear to me. I haven't known that type of grief, which is pretty lucky in 50 years of life. But yes, on the level that was definitely what was driving Forrest. And so that was the answer to so many questions in sort of steering my scene work is, okay, he went through this thing, and then he discerned that his quantum computer that he had created was looking pretty good. And if things worked out the way they were looking like, he might be able to alleviate some of this grief that he's been experiencing. And so that was a wonderful incentive for a character to say, holy cow, you've lost the two people most dear to you. And the actresses that played my daughter and my wife, like, they couldn't have been more delightful and delicious in terms of, like, loved ones that would just be absolutely gutting to lose them. And like when the first time Forrest sees that color image of his daughter blowing bubbles, just gutted me. And so understanding that Alex is so smart. He's such a great crafter of plot, because once you get that, you're like, oh, that justifies anything. Like, of course you burn down a country. Look at that girl.
Easily. How much fun did you and the cast have at the recent Parks and Rec reunion episode? After all these years, you probably still find people that want to talk to you about Ron Swanson, one of the greatest comedy characters ever. Did you guys have a ball?
Well, we did. Thank you. It was so fun. We know that we will likely never do a proper reboot or reunion or anything like that. Mike Schur just writes his shows in a way that he has a certain type of integrity to his work that he says, okay, I want to end this strong. So Parks and Rec and The Good Place, he both ended on his terms. He made a deal with the company, with the network, to end it how he wanted to, instead of waiting to be canceled. And so knowing that, this only came about because when the quarantine happened and the pandemic sort of befell the planet, one of the things that happened to the entertainment companies was they said, holy cow, we're going to be screwed here. We're not going to have any programming in all these different ways. And Mike said, well, maybe this is a good opportunity. Like, it's not a proper show. It's not like this is something that we would have done otherwise, but let's get the gang together and take a swing at doing this sort of fun thing. And it's raised millions of dollars, which is so gratifying. And that's Mike Schur all over. So just seeing everybody, the first table read when we read through the script, via like a Zoom meeting, was just so wonderful to see everybody. I mean, the cast maintains a text thread that has never stopped. So we're always aware of what everybody's up to and how everybody's doing, but getting together to play our parts again was really fun.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Final question. In this world that we're currently living in, obviously technology and screens have become so important, and you touched on this earlier, but your show and you as a master craftsman yourself, it perfectly demonstrates making it. I'm talking about that it's the perfect antidote to the world that we're living in, which is so obsessed with technology. Do you agree that it's the perfect thing that we need right now?
Yeah, I mean, it always is, but now we're being forced to realize it. We're seeing so many people get so excited about, doing jigsaw puzzles because what that requires is spending time together in solace with the members of your household. I mean, I'm sure there are households or times of the day that people are still like isolating in their rooms and like playing their games or whatever, being on their phones. But this quiet time brings us together in a way. I go running every day in my neighborhood, and Megan does like power walking, and we have seen all these neighbors we've never seen before because they don't go running and power walking. But now they're like, oh my God, look at these trees on our street. This is amazing. And so that ties directly into making things with one's hands. It's like people are rediscovering the joys of just simply cooking dinner. It's become so convenient, even for those of us that love to cook or to make things. It's just much easier to order things, whether it's order things to eat or ordering things online for shopping needs or whatever. And I don't know, I grew up in a family that makes things, and there's something about it that it's a healthy way to live. It's ineffable in a sense, but the benefits of making something, whether it's a card for a loved one or a work of art, some kind of craft or food, or you name it, a piece of furniture, a piece of clothing, those things, it's a way that we human beings share love with one another. You can't make something well made without putting affection into it. And so, yes, if everyone relied on handmade things, we probably wouldn't have 17 colors of trainers in the closet. But the 2 pairs of shoes we did have, we would know who made them, and we would know they were made with love. And maybe that's better than 17 colors of trainers. So yeah, I'm very grateful to be part of making it. Making things with your hands is a great way to tell people that you love them.
Definitely. I love that. Nick, I thought Devs was a really special show to watch, and thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I'm so grateful to be a part, and thank you for having me.
Now, everybody go to Gold Derby, make your predictions, and click subscribe. We've got lots of chats with contenders just like Nick.